Captain Jake Morrison pressed his face against the cold metal window of the space station. Below him, Earth looked peaceful and blue. Above him, 5 alien ships were getting ready to leave. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls shined like mirrors in the sunlight. Jake felt sick to his stomach. 3 years of work had just ended in failure. 3 years of learning alien languages, studying their customs, and trying to prove that humans deserved a place in the galaxy. All of it was worthless now. The meeting room behind him was still full of people. Diplomats, scientists, and military officers all sat around a long table. Most of them looked defeated. Some were angry. A few were already making plans to go home. Admiral Lisa Carter walked up beside Jake. She was holding a tablet computer in her hands. The screen showed the official rejection letter from the Galactic Council. She had read it 5 times already, but the words never changed. "Listen to this again," Lisa said. Her voice was tired and bitter. "The human species shows patterns of aggressive behavior that make them unsuitable for council membership. Their rapid technological development indicates dangerous ambition. Their curiosity about other worlds poses a risk to galactic stability." Jake turned away from the window. "Dangerous curiosity? They make it sound like asking questions is a crime." Dr. Alex Rodriguez was sitting at the table with his head in his hands. He had spent more time with the aliens than anyone else. For months he had worked 18-hour days learning their languages and customs. He could speak Zentari better than most Zentari children. He understood Krillian social structures better than their own historians. None of it mattered now. The lead alien diplomat stood at the front of the room. It looked like a tall, thin human covered in gray skin. Its eyes were larger than human eyes and completely black. When it spoke, a small device around its neck translated the words into English. "The decision of the Galactic Council is final," the alien said. Its voice had no emotion at all. "Earth will remain under quarantine. No human vessels will be permitted to travel beyond your solar system. No human colonies will be established on other worlds. No human trade will be conducted with council species." Jake felt his hands turn into fists. "And what if we refuse?" The alien's head turned toward him like a machine. "Then your species will be contained by force. The council has dealt with aggressive species before. We know how to protect the galaxy from dangerous influences." Dr. Helen Turner, the head of the diplomatic team, tried one more time. "Please reconsider. Humans have so much to offer. Our medical knowledge could help species throughout the galaxy. Our engineering skills could solve problems that have existed for centuries. Our art and culture could enrich everyone." The alien did not move. "Your medical knowledge comes from studying violence and injury. Your engineering skills are focused on weapons and warfare. Your art celebrates conflict and conquest. These are not qualities the council values." Jake wanted to punch something. Everything the alien said was wrong, but they would not listen to reason. Yes, humans had fought wars. Yes, they had built weapons. But they had also built hospitals, schools, and museums. They had created music that could make people cry with joy. They had written stories that taught children to be kind. The aliens saw only what they wanted to see. Colonel Ryan Brooks stood up from his chair. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his arms from old battles. "So that's it? We're prisoners in our own solar system? You are free to develop within your assigned boundaries," the alien replied. "Perhaps in a few thousand years, when your species has evolved beyond its primitive nature, the council will reconsider." A few thousand years. Jake almost laughed. The alien was talking about humanity like they were children who needed to sit in the corner until they learned to behave. Engineer Maya Thompson had been quiet during the whole meeting. She was young, maybe 25 years old, with short black hair and oil stains on her uniform. She worked on the space station's engines and knew more about alien technology than anyone else on Earth. "Can I ask a question?" Maya said. The alien turned to look at her. "You may speak. How long has the Galactic Council existed?" "Approximately 50,000 of your years," Maya nodded. And in all that time, how many new species have joined? The alien paused. Jake could see it was thinking about whether to answer. 17 species have achieved full membership status. 17 in 50,000 years, Maya repeated. That's one new member every 3,000 years. Doesn't that seem like a slow rate of expansion? The alien's black eyes seemed to grow darker. The Council values stability over rapid change. Right, Maya said. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. Stability. Jake could see what Maya was thinking. The Galactic Council was not interested in growth or progress. They wanted everything to stay exactly the same. New ideas made them nervous. Different ways of thinking scared them. The alien diplomat began walking toward the door. This meeting is concluded. Our ships will depart within the hour. Do not attempt to follow us or make contact with Council worlds. Such actions will be considered acts of aggression. The other aliens in the room followed their leader. They moved like robots, all walking at the same speed and keeping the same distance from each other. Jake wondered if they ever laughed or told jokes or did anything that was not planned in advance. When the aliens were gone, the room fell silent. Everyone sat there looking at each other, not sure what to say. 3 years of hope had just died. In less than an hour, Admiral Carter finally broke the silence. Well, that went about as badly as it could have. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from his hands. I don't understand. I learned their languages perfectly. I followed all their protocols. I did everything they asked. It wouldn't have mattered, Jake said. He was still standing by the window watching the alien ships prepare to leave. They never intended to let us join. This whole process was just for show. Maya stood up and walked over to join Jake at the window. You know what's funny? They called us too aggressive and dangerous, but they're the ones threatening us with force if we don't obey their rules. Jake looked at her. There was something in her eyes that he had not seen in the others. Not defeat or anger, but something else. Something that looked almost like excitement. You have an idea, he said. Maya smiled. It was the first smile anyone had shown since the meeting started. Maybe. Tell me something, Captain. How many species did they say were in the Council? Jake tried to remember. I think it was around 200. 200 species in a galaxy with billions of stars. That means there are thousands, maybe millions of species out there who are not part of the Council. Species they rejected or ignored or never even contacted. Jake began to understand. You're thinking we could find them. I'm thinking we could do more than find them. I'm thinking we could offer them something better than what the Council offers. Admiral Carter had been listening to their conversation. She walked over to join them at the window. The aliens made it clear. We're not allowed to leave the solar system. Maya's smile grew wider. They said no human vessels would be permitted to travel beyond our solar system. They didn't say anything about non-human vessels carrying human passengers. Jake felt something he had not felt since the meeting started. Hope. Outside the window, the alien ships were beginning to move. Their engines glowed with blue light as they prepared to jump to hyperspace. In a few minutes, they would be gone, and Earth would be alone again. But maybe being alone was not the worst thing that could happen. Maybe it was exactly what humanity needed. 6 months after the aliens left, Jake Morrison stood in a room that did not exist 6 months ago. The walls were covered with star maps, ship designs, and photos of alien technology. Dozens of people worked at computer terminals, talking quietly, into headsets or typing reports. The room was deep underground, built inside an old military base in Colorado. Above ground, the world thought humanity had given up after the Council's rejection. News reports talked about budget cuts to the space program and politicians arguing about what to do next. They were all wrong. Jake was no longer just a captain. The new organization had made him fleet admiral, though he commanded only 3 ships and 200 people. But the title felt right. Soon, he would need it. Maya Thompson walked into the room carrying a metal cylinder the size of a coffee cup. She looked tired but excited. Her hands were covered in grease and her uniform had burn marks on the sleeves. It works, she said simply. Jake felt his heart beat faster. Show me. Maya set the cylinder on a table and pressed a button on the side. The cylinder opened like a flower, revealing a small device that glowed with soft blue light. The same blue light they had seen from the alien ships. This is a hyperspace engine, Maya said. Not as big as the alien ones, but just as fast. Maybe faster. Dr. Rodriguez joined them at the table. He had been studying alien technology every day since the rejection. His office was full of broken pieces of alien equipment that had been left behind or thrown away. Most people thought it was junk. Rodriguez knew better. How did you do it? Rodriguez asked. Maya picked up the device carefully. The aliens think about hyperspace all wrong. They build these huge, complicated engines that need massive amounts of power. But hyperspace is not about power. It's about understanding. Jake did not understand the science, but he understood what it meant. We can build our own ships. Better than that, Maya said. We can build ships the aliens never imagined. Small, fast, and impossible to detect. Colonel Brooks entered the room with a group of young men and women in military uniforms. These were the first volunteers for the new program. All of them had applied within hours of hearing about the project. All of them had been told they might never come home. None of them cared. The first crew is ready for training, Brooks announced. When do we launch? Jake looked around the room. 6 months ago, this had been Maya's crazy idea. Now it was real. Ships were being built in secret factories around the world. Crews were training for missions that officially did not exist. Scientists were solving problems that the Galaxy Council thought were impossible. What should we call it? Jake asked. Doctor. Helen Turner looked up from her computer. She had been working on something she called first contact protocols. New ways to meet alien species that did not involve threats or demands for tribute. The Terran Independence Alliance, Turner said. We're not trying to join someone else's club anymore, we're starting our own. Admiral Carter walked over from another table where she had been studying intelligence reports. Earth's spy satellites had been watching alien ships for months, tracking their routes and learning their patterns. I have good news and bad news, Carter said. The good news is that the Council is not watching us very carefully. They think we gave up. The bad news is that we found something interesting. She activated a wall screen that showed a star map. Red dots marked Council territories. Yellow dots showed neutral space. But there were also green dots scattered throughout the galaxy. What are the green dots? Jake asked. Species that used to be in the Council but left. Species that were rejected like us. Species that were never contacted at all. Carter pointed to a cluster of green dots near the edge of Council space. This system here has 3 different species living on different planets. None of them are Council members. Maya studied the map. How far away? About 6 weeks with our new engines. The aliens would take 3 months to get there with their big ships. Jake felt the pieces of a plan coming together in his mind. What do we know about these species? Dr. Rodriguez pulled up files on his computer. The Ashanti live on the 3rd planet. Reptilian species, very good at building things. The Council contacted them 200 years ago and decided they were too primitive. The Ashanti have been developing on their own ever since. What's primitive about them? Turner asked. They don't have a central government. Each city makes its own decisions. The Council thinks that's inefficient. Jake almost laughed. The Council thinks anyone who doesn't follow their rules is primitive. Rodriguez continued reading. The Northam live on the 4th planet. Insect-like species that work together like bees or ants. The Council tried to negotiate with them 50 years ago but gave up. They said the Northam were impossible to understand. And the 3rd species? No one knows much about them. They live in space itself, not on any planet. Some kind of energy beings. The Council declared their system off limits and forbid anyone from going there. Maya looked at the star map with growing excitement. 3 species that the Council rejected or abandoned. 3 species that might be willing to listen to a different approach. What kind of approach? Brooks asked. Turner had been thinking about this question for months. Partnership instead of domination. Trade instead of tribute. Cooperation instead of conquest. Jake walked over to the star map and studied the green dots. There were hundreds of them. Hundreds of species that the Council had written off as worthless or dangerous, or primitive. We're not going there to make them join us, Jake said slowly. We're going there to offer them something better than what the Council offers. What's that? Carter asked. Freedom. The room fell quiet as everyone thought about what that meant. The Galactic Council ruled through fear and threats. They demanded tribute from member species and offered protection in return. But what if there was another way? Maya picked up her hyperspace engine and held it in both hands. I can have the first ship ready in 2 months. Who flies it? Brooks asked. Jake looked around the room at all the people who had given up comfortable lives to chase an impossible dream. Scientists who could have worked for big corporations, military officers who could have commanded important bases, engineers who could have built profitable inventions. Instead, they were here in a secret room underground, planning to challenge the most powerful organization in the galaxy. I do, Jake said. I fly the first mission. Carter shook her head. Too risky. If something happens to you, the whole project falls apart. If I don't go, then I'm asking other people to take risks I won't take myself. That's not leadership. Maya closed her hyperspace engine and put it back in its case. The ship won't be fancy. No weapons, minimal life support, just enough room for a crew of 5. 5 people to change the galaxy, Rodriguez said. It's been done before, Turner added. Columbus had 3 ships and 90 men when he crossed the Atlantic. That changed the world. Jake studied the star map one more time. Somewhere out there were species that had been rejected, abandoned, or ignored by the Council. Species that might be willing to try something new. The Council thought they had solved the human problem by keeping Earth isolated. They thought humans would eventually give up and accept their place as prisoners in their own solar system. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 2 months, Jake said. Maya, I want that ship ready. Brooks, I want a crew trained. Turner, I want first contact protocols that don't involve threats. Carter, I want intelligence on every species in that system. He looked around the room one more time. The Council thinks they barred Earth from joining their club. What they really did was free us to build something better. Outside, the world continued to believe that humanity had accepted defeat. Politicians made speeches about focusing on problems at home. Scientists talked about the benefits of staying in the solar system. But deep underground, in a room that did not officially exist, humanity was preparing for its next great adventure. The ship ESV Pioneer dropped out of hyperspace near the Kepler system with a flash of blue light. Captain Danny Carter, Lisa's younger brother, felt his stomach settle as the artificial gravity kicked in. 6 weeks of travel in a ship the size of a small house had been uncomfortable, but they had made it. All systems normal, reported engineer Pete Williams from his tiny station behind the captain's chair. The ship was so small that the 5 crew members could touch the walls from the center of the main room. Any signs we were detected? Danny asked. Communications officer Lucy Grant checked her instruments. Nothing. The alien detection grid is focused on big ships using old hyperspace technology. We slipped right past them. Danny looked through the front window at the 3 planets ahead. According to Earth's intelligence reports, each planet held a different species that the Galactic Council had rejected or abandoned. This was humanity's first chance to prove their new approach could work. Take us to the 3rd planet first, Danny ordered. Let's meet the Ashanti. The planet looked brown and green from space, with large cities connected by straight roads. As the Pioneer got closer, they could see the cities were built differently than human cities. The buildings were low and wide, spread out instead of built up. Incoming transmission, Lucy announced. They're speaking in their own language, but I think they're asking who we are. Dr. Sam Parker, the mission's xenobiologist, activated the translation system he had spent months preparing. Tell them we are explorers from Earth. We come in peace and wish to speak with their leaders. The reply came quickly. Lucy listened, through her headset, and smiled. They're inviting us to land. They sound curious, not afraid. The Pioneer landed in a field outside the largest city. Through the windows, they could see Ashanti approaching the ship. They walked upright like humans, but were covered in dark green scales. They were taller than humans and moved with careful, deliberate steps. Danny put on his environmental suit and stepped outside. The air was breathable for humans, but they were taking no chances. The lead Ashanti was wearing something that looked like a combination of armor and formal clothing. "I am Chieftain Komal of the Eastern Cities," the alien said through a translation device. "We have not seen new visitors in many years. The Council ships stopped coming long ago." "I am Captain Danny Carter of Earth," Danny replied. "We are not part of the Council. We represent a new alliance of independent worlds." Komal's large yellow eyes studied Danny carefully. "Independent? This is a word we understand well. The Council called us primitive because we do not have one ruler for our entire world. Each city chooses its own path." Danny smiled inside his helmet. This was exactly what Dr. Turner had predicted. The Council saw independence as a weakness. Humans saw it as a strength. "We believe different ways of living can work together," Danny said. "We're not here to change how you govern yourselves. We're here to offer partnership." Over the next 3 days, Danny and his crew learned about Ashanti society. Each city was like a separate country, but they traded with each other and helped during emergencies. They were master builders who created tools and machines that lasted for centuries. More importantly, the Ashanti had something humans needed. Their planet was rich in rare metals that were essential for building hyperspace engines. The Council had demanded these metals as tribute, but offered little in return. "What do you offer for partnership?" Chieftain Komal asked during their final meeting. Danny activated a small device that projected images in the air. "Medical technology that can extend your lifespans by 50%. Defensive weapons that can protect your cities from any threat. And most important, respect for your independence." The Ashanti leaders talked among themselves in their own language. Finally, Komal turned back to Danny. "The Council wanted us to change everything about ourselves to join them. You ask us to change nothing. This seems too good to be true." "There is one thing we ask," Danny said. "If other species want to join our alliance, will you help us welcome them?" Komal's scales changed color slightly, which Dr. Parker had learned meant amusement. "You want us to help you find more rejected species like ourselves?" "Exactly. Then we accept your partnership. The Eastern Cities will work with Earth and any others who believe in independence." The pioneer left the Ashanti world with signed agreements and samples of the rare metals humanity needed. But more than that, they left with proof that their approach worked. The first non-human members of the Terran Independence Alliance were not subjects or servants. They were partners. The fourth planet was different. The Northam lived in huge, underground cities that looked like giant anthills from space. The Council had given up trying to communicate with them because they did not have individual leaders to negotiate with. Commander Beth Wilson, who had replaced Danny for this part of the mission, tried a different approach. Instead of asking to speak with leaders, she sent mathematical patterns and scientific formulas toward the planet. The response came as complex geometric shapes drawn in the planet's atmosphere by thousands of flying Northam working together. Dr. Parker spent hours analyzing the patterns before he understood. "They're not just talking to us," he said excitedly. "They're teaching us their language through mathematics." Over several days, the humans learned to communicate with the Northam through pattern recognition. The insect-like aliens thought as a group mind, but they were incredibly intelligent. They had developed technology the Council had never seen because they approached problems as a unified species instead of competing individuals. The Northam offered something even more valuable than the Ashanti metals. They had learned to manipulate space-time itself, creating pocket dimensions for storage and communication networks that worked instantly across any distance. "Why do you want to help us?" Wilson asked through a pattern of lights and sounds. The Northam response came as images projected directly into the humans' minds. They showed the Council arriving centuries ago, trying to force the Northam to choose individual representatives. When the Northam explained that they did not work that way, the Council declared them impossible to negotiate with and left. The Council had never tried to understand the Northam. They had simply decided that anything different from their normal experience was wrong. Wilson made the same offer the humans had made to the Ashanti. Partnership without demands for change. Respect for their way of life. and help in welcoming other independent species to the Alliance. The Northam agreed by creating a beautiful light show that could be seen from orbit. But the third species in the system presented the biggest challenge. The energy beings that lived in space itself had no physical form that humans could understand. They existed partially outside normal space-time, appearing as shifting clouds of light that could be the size of a house or a planet. Captain Steve Johnson took the Pioneer directly into the area where the energy beings lived. The Council had declared this region off limits and forbidden anyone from entering. Johnson, with typical human curiosity, flew straight into the middle of it. The ship's instruments went crazy as reality seemed to bend around them. The stars outside the windows moved in impossible directions. Time seemed to speed up and slow down randomly. Then suddenly, everything was normal again. But floating outside the ship was a being made of pure light that somehow had a face humans could recognize. "You are not afraid," the being said without using sound. Its voice appeared directly in their minds. "Should we be?" Johnson asked. "The Council ships fled when they saw us. They called us dangerous and unpredictable." Johnson smiled. "They said the same thing about humans. I think we'll get along just fine." The energy beings, who called themselves the Quantum Wraiths, had abilities that seemed like magic. They could fold space to allow instant travel between any 2 points in the galaxy. They could exist in multiple dimensions at once. They could manipulate matter and energy with their thoughts. But they were lonely. For thousands of years, they had watched other species develop and grow while they remained isolated. The Council's fear had condemned them to solitude. "We offer the same thing we offered the others," Johnson said. "Partnership and friendship, a chance to be part of something bigger, without losing what makes you unique." The Quantum Wraith that spoke for its people glowed brighter. "We accept. It has been too long since we had friends." When the Pioneer returned to Earth 3 months later, it carried representatives from 3 species and agreements that would change the galaxy. The Terran Independence Alliance had grown from 1 rejected species to 4 partners in less than a year. Jake Morrison met the ship as it landed. "How did it go?" Danny stepped out of the ship with a grin on his face. "We're not alone anymore, and this is just the beginning." The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council took place on Zentara Prime, the capital world of the Zentari Collective. Senator Veltar stood before a massive chamber filled with representatives from 200 different species. The air hummed, with translation devices working in dozens of languages. "The human problem is worse than we thought," Veltar announced. His gray skin looked paler than usual, and his large black eyes showed worry for the first time in centuries. "They have not remained isolated as ordered. They have been recruiting." Images appeared on the chamber's main screen showing human ships visiting different worlds. The Council members watched in silence as the footage showed humans making contact with species they had rejected long ago. "The Ashanti have joined them," Veltar continued. "So have the Northam. Even the dangerous energy beings from the Forbidden Zone are now working with humans." Murmurs of concern spread through the chamber. Many Council members had forgotten about the species they had rejected. Others had never heard of them at all. The idea that these forgotten groups were now working together was disturbing. High Chancellor Zix of the Krell Federation stood up slowly. The Krell were one of the oldest Council members, and their opinion carried great weight. "How many species have joined this human alliance?" "Our latest intelligence reports show 12 confirmed members," Veltar replied, "but the number grows every month. They are specifically targeting species we have rejected or abandoned." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Council members shouted questions and demands in their native languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with the chaos. "Order," Chancellor Zix called out. "We must approach this problem logically." He looked directly at Veltar. "What exactly are the humans offering these species?" Veltar activated another display showing intercepted communications. "They call it partnership. No tribute payments. No demands to change their governments or cultures. No requirement to provide military service. They simply ask for cooperation and mutual aid." A Vorthan delegate raised one of her 4 arms. That sounds reasonable. What is the problem? The problem, Veltar said sharply, is that it undermines everything the Council stands for. For 50,000 years we have maintained order through a clear hierarchy. Strong species guide weak species. Advanced civilizations teach primitive ones. This human approach suggests that all species are equal. More murmurs spread through the chamber. Some sounded worried, others sounded curious. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Harmony Station. The space station was humanity's new headquarters, built with help from all their alliance partners. Ashanti engineering made it strong. Northam technology made it efficient. Quantum wraith abilities made it impossible for enemies to find. Commander, Kate Anderson approached with the intelligence report in her hands. Sir, we're picking up a lot of Council military activity. They're moving fleets toward the border regions. Jake studied the tactical display showing ship movements throughout Council space. They're trying to intimidate their own members. Some of them must be thinking about leaving. Dr. Rodriguez walked over from his monitoring station. It's worse than that. We're receiving secret messages from 17 different Council species. They want to know more about joining our alliance. 17? Jake felt a mix of excitement and worry. That's almost 10% of their total membership. Including some of their core worlds, Anderson added. The Altarians have been Council members for 20,000 years. If they leave, it would be a huge blow to Council authority. Jake looked at the star map showing both Council territory and the growing Independent Systems Coalition. Red areas marked Council control. Blue areas showed Coalition space. But now there were purple zones where Council authority was being questioned. What's our current military strength? Jake asked. Anderson pulled up another display. 60 ships from 20 different species. The Council has over 3,000 ships, but most of them are old and designed for intimidation rather than actual combat. Quality versus quantity, Jake said. Are we ready if they decide to attack? Our ships are faster and more advanced, Anderson replied. But they have overwhelming numbers. A direct fight would be costly for everyone. Back on Zentara Prime, the Council debate had been going on for hours. Some members wanted immediate military action against the human alliance. Others suggested negotiation. A few even wondered if the humans might have good ideas worth considering. Senator Veltar was losing patience with the discussion. Every day we delay, more species join the human coalition. We must act decisively before this rebellion spreads further. What do you propose? Asked Chancellor Zix. A demonstration of power. We select one of the human allies and make an example of them. Show the galaxy what happens to species that defy Council authority. A small voice spoke from the back of the chamber. What if they fight back? The chamber fell silent. The question had come from a junior delegate representing a minor species. Most Council members had never considered the possibility that their threats might be challenged. Veltar's black eyes narrowed. They are primitives and outcasts. They will surrender when faced with real power. But doubt was spreading through the chamber. For the first time in thousands of years, Council members were questioning whether their traditional methods would work. On Harmony Station, Jake received reports from Coalition scouts throughout the galaxy. The news was both encouraging and dangerous. 23 species have now formally joined the Coalition, reported Captain Danny Carter. But the Council is mobilizing their fleets. Our spies say they're planning some kind of military action. Jake turned to Maya Thompson, who had been working on new, defensive technologies. How are the planetary shields coming along? The quantum wraiths figured out how to bend space around entire worlds, Maya replied. Any attacking fleet would find themselves shooting at empty space while the real planet exists in a pocket dimension. And our offensive capabilities? Northam have developed something they call logic bombs. Computer viruses that can shut down entire fleets without causing casualties. The Ashanti built kinetic weapons that can disable ships without destroying them. Jake nodded approvingly. We're not trying to win a war. We're trying to prove that war isn't necessary. Dr. Helen Turner approached with a diplomatic update. Sir, I've been analyzing the Council's internal communications. There's a split forming in their leadership. About half want to negotiate with us. The other half want to crush us. Which half is winning? Right now, the hardliners are in control. But that could change if we handle this correctly. Jake studied all the information before him. The coalition had grown beyond his wildest dreams. But success had brought new dangers. The Council saw them as a threat to everything they had built over 50,000 years. Send a message to all coalition members, Jake decided. Tell them to prepare their defenses but take no aggressive action. We're not starting a war. What if the Council attacks anyway? Anderson asked. Jake looked out the station window at the ships from dozens of different species working together in space. Ashanti construction vessels worked alongside Northam technical ships. Quantum wraith energy forms danced between human patrol craft. Species that had never met before the coalition now shared technology and friendship. Then we defend ourselves, Jake said, but we do it in a way that shows the galaxy there's a better path than endless conflict. The message Jake sent that day reached every member of the coalition and many Council worlds as well. It was simple and direct. We do not seek war. We seek freedom. We do not demand surrender from our enemies. We offer partnership to anyone ready to choose cooperation over domination. Within hours, 3 more species left the Council to join the coalition. The rebellion was spreading faster than anyone had expected. On Zentara Prime, Senator Veltar received reports of the defections with growing fury. This ends now, he declared. Prepare the battle fleets. We will remind the galaxy who holds real power. But even as he gave the orders, Veltar could see uncertainty in the eyes of other Council members. For the first time in their long history, they were facing an enemy that offered hope instead of fear. The galaxy was about to discover which approach would prove stronger. The Council war fleet arrived at the border of Coalition space like a storm cloud blocking out the stars. 300 massive ships stretched across the darkness, their hulls gleaming with weapons that had kept the galaxy in line for 50,000 years. Admiral Jake Morrison watched them approach from the bridge of Harmony Station. The Coalition fleet looked tiny by comparison. 60 ships from 20 different species, each one built with different technology and painted in different colors. They should have been terrified. Instead, Jake felt calm. Council fleet is sending a transmission, reported Communications Officer Lucy Grant. Put it through, Jake ordered. Senator Veltar's image appeared on the main screen. His gray skin looked darker than usual, and his black eyes burned with anger. Surrender immediately, and your punishment will be merciful. Continue this rebellion and face complete destruction. Jake stood up slowly. Behind him, representatives from every coalition species watched and waited. Ashanti warriors with their scaled skin. Northam leaders connected by glowing neural links. Quantum wraiths existing as beings of pure light. Dozens of other species that the Council had rejected or forgotten. Senator Veltar, Jake said calmly, we have no wish to fight you, but we will not surrender our freedom. Freedom? Veltar's voice cracked with disbelief. You speak of freedom while corrupting the natural order of the galaxy. Strong species must guide weak ones. That is how civilization survives. That is how tyranny survives, Jake replied. Civilization thrives when all voices are heard. Veltar cut the transmission. Within minutes, the Council fleet began moving forward in perfect formation. Every ship moved at exactly the same speed, maintaining precise distances from each other. It was an impressive display of discipline and order. It was also exactly what the Coalition had prepared for. Northam Fleet, execute logic bomb deployment, Jake ordered. The Northam ships, small and insect-like, darted forward faster than the Council ships could track. As they passed through the enemy formation, they released invisible computer viruses into the Council communication networks. Within seconds, the perfect formation began to break apart. Council ships found themselves unable to coordinate with each other. Some stopped moving entirely. Others flew in random directions as their navigation systems failed. Quantum Wraith units, activate dimensional shields, Jake continued. The energy being surrounding the Coalition fleet began to glow brighter. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around the Coalition ships. Council weapons fired at targets that suddenly were not there, their shots passing through empty space while the real ships existed in pocket dimensions. Ashanti Bombardment Group, disable enemy weapon systems, Jake ordered. The Ashanti ships launched kinetic projectiles that struck the Council vessels with perfect precision, but instead of exploding, the projectiles released electromagnetic pulses that shut down weapon systems without harming the crews inside. In less than 10 minutes, the mighty Council fleet was floating helplessly in space. Their ships were intact, and their crews were safe, but they could not fight, communicate, or navigate. Jake opened a communication channel to the entire Council fleet. This is Admiral Morrison of the Independent Systems Coalition. Your weapons are disabled, but your ships are undamaged and your crews are unharmed. You are free to return home. The response came not from Senator Veltar, but from a dozen different Council ship captains at once. Without their central communication system, individual commanders were speaking for themselves for the first time in years. How did you defeat us so easily? Asked one captain. Why did you not destroy us when you could? Asked another. Jake chose his words carefully. We did not defeat you. We showed you that violence is not necessary. We could have destroyed your fleet, but we chose to disable it instead. That is the difference between conquest and cooperation. Over the next several hours, something unprecedented happened. Individual Council ship captains began talking directly with Coalition representatives, without their rigid command structure, forcing them to follow orders. They were free to ask questions and form their own opinions. Captain Zara of the Vorthan cruiser Starfire spoke with Commander Beth Wilson about the Northam approach to group decision-making. Captain Thorne of the Krell battleship Dominion discussed Ashanti engineering techniques with Maya Thompson. Commander Yax of the Zentari destroyer Eclipse asked Dr. Rodriguez about human medical advances. Many Council officers had never actually talked with members of species their government had rejected. They had been told these beings were primitive, dangerous, or incompatible with civilized society. Meeting them in person revealed a very different truth. Meanwhile, on Zentara Prime, emergency sessions were being held as reports came in from the defeated fleet. Senator Veltar paced back and forth in front of the Council chamber, his composure finally cracking. This is impossible, he repeated over and over. Primitive species cannot defeat advanced civilizations. The natural order cannot be overturned. But High Chancellor Zix was reading reports from the fleet commanders with growing interest. Senator, these reports suggest that the Coalition did not use primitive tactics. Their technology appears to be more advanced than ours. That cannot be true. Their ships are faster, their weapons are more precise, and their coordination is superior to our own. How do you explain this? Veltar had no answer. Everything he believed about the galaxy's hierarchy was being challenged by facts he could not deny. Back in Coalition space, Jake received a priority message from Earth. His sister Lisa, now running Coalition intelligence operations, had intercepted communications from throughout Council territory. Jake, you need to see this, Lisa said. 17 Council worlds have declared independence in the last 6 hours. They're asking to join the Coalition. Jake felt his heart race. 17? Which ones? Including 3 core worlds that have been Council members for over 30,000 years. The Altarians officially withdrew an hour ago. The Meridian Collective is holding a vote right now. Dr. Turner approached with her own report. Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from 47 Council ships. Their crews want to defect to the Coalition. Jake looked out at the Council, fleet floating helplessly in space. Many of the ships were launching small shuttles toward Coalition vessels. Council officers were abandoning their posts to join the organization they had been sent to destroy. What should we do with Senator Veltar's ship? Asked Commander Anderson. Jake thought for a moment. Send him a message. Tell him he's free to return to Council space. But also tell him that if he ever wants to discuss a different approach to Galactic governance were willing to listen. The message was sent, but Veltar's ship had already begun the journey back to Zentari space. Jake suspected it would be a long time before the senator was ready for that conversation. Over the following weeks, the galaxy transformed more rapidly than anyone had thought possible. The Council's authority collapsed as member species left to join the coalition or form their own independent governments. Trade routes that had been controlled by Council bureaucrats for millennia opened to free commerce. Most importantly, species that had been enemies for generations began talking to each other directly instead of through Council intermediaries. Old conflicts ended as beings discovered they had more in common than their governments had told them. Jake stood once again at the observation deck of Harmony Station, but now the view was very different. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species moved freely through space. The station itself had grown into a small city where beings of all kinds lived and worked together. Maya Thompson joined him at the window. "Remember when this started with just an idea about building better engines?" Jake smiled. "I remember when it started with the Council telling us we were too dangerous to join their club." "Think they were right?" Jake watched a group of human children playing with young Ashanti, Northam, and other species in the station's park. They were laughing together, learning each other's languages, and creating friendships that would shape the future of the galaxy. "Maybe we were dangerous," Jake said. "Dangerous to tyranny. Dangerous to the idea that some beings are worth more than others. Dangerous to the belief that strength means the right to dominate." Maya nodded. The Council thought they were keeping dangerous humans out of their organization. They never realized they were keeping the solution out. A year later, the Independent Systems Coalition included over 300 species. The Galactic Council still existed, but it now governed less than 50 worlds. Most of its former members had chosen freedom over security, cooperation over domination, and in schools throughout Coalition space, children learned the story of how humanity responded to rejection, not with anger or violence, but by building something better. They learned that when someone tells you that you do not belong in their group, sometimes the best response is to start your own group and make it so good that everyone wants to join. The galaxy had learned that the most dangerous thing about humans was not their capacity for war, but their capacity for hope.